Good afternoon, beautiful beings of light. Welcome to the Wisdom Circle with five of my favorite ladies: Heather, Terry Lee, Joan, Terry Suzuki, and SunPsychic Jean. Welcome, ladies, to the first Wisdom Circle. It's so exciting to have you. How is
It's great
everybody?
to it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Yes,
Oh,
it is.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All
A little
right, I never
technical.
had that on.
I don't know if
why.
Indigo Jaguar is here, but hello, Heather, and hello, Linda De Gonzalez. Did Linda ever find somebody to do learn mediumship? Do you remember? I remember her talking to Jean one day and going, "I think I'm a medium," or you told her she was.
Exactly. She says that she hears things and sees things and feels things. And I said, well, honey, that means you're a medium. You're one of us.
You're definitely one of us. Hi, Hypnicity. Welcome. And Light 777. I can't read that far away.
7, 7.
Yes.
Welcome. Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. I can't believe we're here finally. It's been a few months.
Yeah.
So, how is everybody today? You ready to rock and roll?
Excellent. Ready to roll.
Well, that's great. I wanted to kind of introduce everybody to the idea. Hi, White Dragon. Valerie, yay. People are coming in. Terrific. Feel free to say hi, ladies.
Hi, everybody.
And Happy New Year.
Yes, indeed.
Indeed.
And
So-
Mary Ellen's here.
That's wonderful. Mary Ellen, hi. We're getting
And
quite the
Valerie.
group already.
Yep.
Valerie B. Yes. All of us posted the link on our channel. And Terra Love Community. Hey, Renee.
Yay.
How
Hi
you
there.
doing? So
Welcome.
nice to see you.
Nice
Everybody,
to see
we
you guys.
love Renee from Terra Love Community. So
Yes,
nice
indeed.
to
It's
see
such a
you.
great
Thanks for
project
coming.
that it's got going. I love Tarot Love Community.
She's brilliant.
Yes, she is.
I love her tutorials. I learned so much.
Oh, I haven't even tried the tutorials. I must do that.
She was putting out a bunch of them, and they were very easy to understand.
On
Yeah.
StreamYard, about StreamYard or YouTube?
It was pretty much how to use the interface, the Terra Love Community site, and what you
Okay.
can do, and how to use it, and what the features are, and things like that.
It's a
Great.
wonderful community.
Check that out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, all of you in the chat, we just developed this group of ladies, and it's not just going to be us. We're going to invite other wise women to share their opinions as we move along. We don't have any plans yet for that, but we know it's going to come in the future. But for right now, it's going to be the six of us, and we're going to pick a different subject each month. It'll be the first Monday of the month. We're going to pick a different subject to talk about. And then we're all going to talk about it from our point of view and the experiences that we've had regarding that subject and how it's affected our lives and our growth. And we'll see what happens from there. But we've got a bunch of great subjects. Now, today's just the introduction, so I didn't pick a subject. And the subject I really want to talk about is so controversial, I decided I'd wait till this my next
Later.
one. I think it's June or July that I come in next, because I want to talk about when the soul enters the body. So that's going to be my first subject, but that'll be like in June or something like that.
Oh, I have a little experience with that.
Oh, interesting.
Can I tell you really quick?
Sure.
It's what I was helping somebody with, when they would have their first grandchild. And I said, I could see the soul on the other side waiting to come in. And I said, she was like doing a dance, like you would, you're waiting for the double Dutch. You know how you wait for
Yes.
for the ropes when you're going into the double Dutch ropes, and
I
you
love
kind of
that.
have to do the dance before you get in, like you have to get into the rhythm before you actually jump in. And this is what I saw. So
That is really interesting.
That's such a
Fascinating.
beautiful
Wow.
image.
Well, that's gonna be a fun one, I think.
Mhm.
So we want to include the chat room. And we want to hear your all's opinion about what we discussed too. And eventually, I would like to put a link in the chat room as soon as we can figure out the logistics and have people come on, go ahead and come on the channel as well. I think that might be fun as well. As we'll probably start that next month if everyone agrees to it and we think we can work it out, because we want to share experiences with everybody and we want to hear about yours as well. But
Yes.
for 6 different views, I think it's going to be kind of interesting.
You
Well,
think?
none of our paths are the same, so it's really going to
but
be
Yeah.
Even ours are different.
absolutely.
Completely different.
So, anyway, let's see who else is here. Do we have any questions yet? But I'm going to introduce Heather and let Heather tell us a little bit about her background, and then Heather can introduce the next lady.
And we'll just keep going that way. Of course, I'm usually very quiet, so a lot of people don't know anything about me. I've been doing different things since I was a child. Only I figured they were normal. Everybody could do these things. I didn't know that they were different. And I'm just still learning all the different things that I can do and trying to develop the ability to do them on command, because there are things that I have done that I didn't know that you could do, like remote viewing or astral traveling or uh, getting messages from cards, or even getting messages from my angels, knowing that these are the right things or this is the right answer and stuff like that. I didn't realize that was unusual. And so I'm still working on getting all of these things, that because it wasn't exactly something that was acceptable in my family. So
Boy, that's for sure, isn't it? How many of you had a family that didn't quite understand?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think my mom might have, but she didn't believe a word I said most of the time.
She did in the end.
In the end, she came back through you and said, "What you said is right. That's exactly what's happening."
Wow.
As many times as you told me, and I just didn't believe you, but it sounded good, so I just went along with it. That wasn't while she had dementia, so within 5 minutes she'd forgotten everything, and I have to repeat it. But so I've been doing an awful lot more of studying since I got my kids raised, and they were out beginning to do things on their own, and I began to start looking at these kinds of things as actually being there. And well, I've done that, yeah, but I haven't done it to the point where I could do it all the time. But with practice, things are getting a lot better. I know there's a lot of things I can do. There's a lot of times I know the answers for other people, not necessarily for me, but for other people, I know what the answers are. So anyway, I'm still working, but what I have found is there isn't really anything that I can't do. It's just a matter of developing it.
I think that's true for all of us. Practice helps you develop your skills.
And one of the people that helps me, especially with my, because I used to see ghosts, and I would even talk to them, and I knew they understood what I said. I've never been afraid of them. I've always felt like they haven't hurt. They would never hurt me, even as a kid, because I would wake up at night and there would be this lady at the end of my bed watching me. And I'd wake up and look at her, "Oh, it's you. Okay, I'll go back to sleep."
I'm sorry, but I don't think I would think though. I think I would have been scared to death if I'd seen some lady standing at the end of my bed.
She wasn't going to hurt me. I just, "Oh, it's you again." Okay.
That's cool.
So
cool.
White Dragon is letting us know that his mother's side was all psychics and artists, and the father's side were normies. And I find that's typical. That's very similar to one side of the family is connected and the other side of the family is not. And that's very, I hear that often.
Yeah. But she didn't encourage it at all. But she did enough. She knew enough to know who this person was when I asked her. and
Oh,
she did some questioning and things and got an answer as to who it was. And it was the lady who happened to live at that house at one time and had a child my age, and she was just making sure I was okay because her daughter had died. So she was always taking care to make sure I was okay. But one of the people that's helping me, especially with, because I see people standing behind other people and I know they're relatives, and sometimes they're fully dressed, and sometimes I just have a notion of whether they're male or female. But most of the times they're fully dressed. Like when I was talking to a banker, and he started talking about his mother passing away recently. And there she was standing behind him with her hand on his shoulder.
oh my
And she
gosh.
wanted to communicate and tell him how much she loved him, which I did. But
Oh,
again, it wasn't something that's on demand, it's something that just happened frequently. Anyway, but SunPsychic Gina has been helping me and letting me practice with trying to do it more on command so that it's more natural for me to do this. And since I mentioned SunPsychic Gina, I will go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. And Kay says her grand was a medium before she started school. She knew some of her dead relatives more than the living ones.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Oh, and she was shocked when she realized it was not usual. See,
And-
Heather, you're
right,
not the
right.
only one.
And
That's
did
very
Kay,
similar.
and did Kay find herself talking to them on the way home from school when she's walking by herself? I always did, you know.
I know. I find that really interesting that you talk to them all the time and didn't
Yeah.
realize.
I didn't know it was unusual. I just talked to them. I'd hear them give an answer. I'd keep talking. Anyway, go ahead.
And I just want to shout out to Lauren Hunsinger. She says, "Hello, ladies in chat. It's delightful and exciting to listen to." Oh, how
Oh,
lovely.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's very sweet. And there's so many, everybody's in the chat. Gina M is here, Linda, Lauren, Mary Ellen, Renee, Viviani is here. Thank you, everybody. And Hypnicity, Wiki, and Valerie B. We just love everybody being here. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to look over to my side here for a moment. I have a little cheat sheet of my history. So I have a little bit of history. I've done many classes in my experience, my metaphysical type of experience and education. And one of the biggest things that opened me up to this world was that I bought a house, and in the house was a visitor. And I always felt like somebody was watching me, but again, like you make up excuses, and you don't think it's anything real until one night that I actually saw him. And so that really broke me open. And ever since then, my experience has accelerated. I studied feng shui. I've also studied Reiki. I've done all 3 levels of Reiki. And I learned about energy and energy flow with feng shui and with Reiki and calling in the energy and focus. It helped me to learn focus. I also studied shamanic energy healing, which allowed me to understand myself and to heal myself and to understand the energies and the forces of energies around me. It was a very, very good experience. I also studied crystal healing, and I love crystals, and I have many, many of them, and I use them in my practice every day. Now, I don't have a lot of them memorized for me to give you like a prescription and say, well, you need to use this. Once in a while, if it comes up, I'll refer to it, but it's not anything
Right.
that I'm very well versed in. I
You
also
mean you're no Nancy Jean with crystals?
I know. It's amazing what some
Yeah,
people do with this.
it is.
I also took just many different classes. I also am certified in BQH, which is Beyond Quantum Healing, and it's similar to the QHHT where you do the past life regression. Um, I am certified, but I don't actually practice doing this. It's a long, involved process, and I prefer using like my, when I do readings, I can do a reading on a past life reading, and I can go back. I call it the halls of knowledge. It's just what I call it. It's just something I feel comfortable using. And this is, I use some of that technique and terminology to go into just my reading, which is a little more. It's only 60 minutes, or it could be a little bit more, but typically about 60 minutes.
I've done that with you. I know how it works, and it is amazing experience to go to the Hall of Records with you. When I went with you, I had Anubis sit at the door. Anubis was the guard at the door the first time that we went together, and I saw him bigger than Dallas. I was like, "Oh my God, he's huge." It was like 15 feet tall, but it was truly an experience to do that. And I call it the Akashic Records. You call it the Hall of Wisdom. It's all the same as far as I'm concerned, but it's just you do it so well as a part of your mediumship, I guess, is it's a phenomenal experience, and I highly recommend it to anybody that hasn't done it with Gene.
It's very similar, I think, a little bit more to a shamanic journey. So it
Yes.
is, and you know what this means? Just going to bring us all back together. It
Sure.
just means that there are no hard and fast rules. There's no boxes anymore.
No.
There's no
Mm-mm.
work for us to be like a past life, can't go into mediumship, can't go into psychic. We all are what we are, and we all have access to all of these tools. And
And none of them are the same way. We don't access things the same way. It's amazing how many
Yeah.
different methodologies we all use to get to the same place. But it's what works for us.
And it's a lot, like a lot of people say, well, they have to do this in order to astral travel or remote view. And I said, I just think I'm going to be there, and boom, I'm there. It's just everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, which all of this led me to taking a class with Medium Kim and Susan Lin back in 2021, the summer of 2021. And this is where I met all of my classmates here. I met Terry Lee and Wisdom Seeker Joan and Terry Suzuki. I met all of them there. And after the class, our teachers suggested that we develop a practice group. And I had such a somebody, I felt such a compulsion. I felt compelled. I had to sign up for Zoom, learn how to do it, invite everybody. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt so compelled. It was like waking me up in the middle of the night. Do this, do this, do this. So I started the practice group. And oh my gosh, so much has happened from that practice group. It's been just a blessing. And this leads me to Wisdom Seeker Joan. So Wisdom Seeker Joan is an amazing psychic and medium, and she has a world of experience, and she has a beautiful story that she's going to tell us all about. And thank you very much, everybody, for your time.
Thank you, Jean.
Yay!
And belated thank yous for running that practice group for all those
We love it.
many, many months. It was so just groundbreaking for me and for many other people.
Yes.
And you were so encouraging, not only to me, but to so many others who were sort of like, I don't know if I can do this or not. So I just owe you so very much. And so thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
Jean is definitely a cheerleader. She cheers all of us on. It's
Mhm.
just
I know.
Yeah, and I kind of was thinking when you were talking about you were compelled to do it, that's kind of like her. She was compelled to get us all together.
I was
And that's
compelled.
spirit. That's spirit.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, it was spirit
Yep.
pushing me to do this. And you guys all just jumped in with both feet and went right on.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, continue.
Okay. Well, my story, I wasn't a natural born psychic medium or anything like that, but I had, when I was young, I'd see ghosts once in a while. Sometimes I'd see them, and sometimes I would just sense something in the room. And it wasn't a really fun feeling most of the time. It was scary. And my parents, I was running to jump into my parents' bed until I was way past the time where you should do that. But things finally settled down a bit. And it got to be the point where, I remember once I had two sisters and my mom, and we were all and my grandmother too, had a little bit of something going on. And so I remember once, especially coming down to breakfast and when we were in high school or junior high, and I was angry at my sister because I had sensed that she was in my room in the little closet in the middle of the night. And I said, "What were you doing going through my sock drawer last night?" Because I wasn't there looking at her, but I knew someone was going through the drawer where I kept my socks. And she said, "I wasn't going through your sock drawer. I wasn't in your room last night."
You're crazy, sis. I wasn't there.
Like, oh, one of those again. Okay, yeah. So, but that was kind of fun. My two sisters and mom and grandmother and I, we just, we were making dinner mother was making dinner for 7 people every night. And then, so there's a lot of setup and cleanup. And we just got used to working together. I don't know if you've ever worked in a restaurant or something like that, where everybody knows exactly what the next person's going to do. So through doing things together, just, the dishes and the everyday stuff, I think we further developed our family sinking in, or how we were, kind of linked to each other. So sometimes things would come up where I kind of say it was hard to keep a secret in that family. And I told the story about how the night I got engaged, my husband and I decided, well, let's wait a couple of days till the weekend and we can go down and tell your folks together. And the very next morning, my mother called me saying, "Are you okay? Are you sure?" And I said, "Oh, I'm fine. Everything is fine." And I thought, she can wait a couple of days. And then she called back later and said, "Are you sure you're okay? Your sister Ann called and said, 'So what's up with Joan?'" She'd woken up in the middle of the night saying, "Something's up with Joan." And so I finally had to break down and tell them that, well, we were going to wait to tell you, but I got engaged last night. She said, "Oh, thank goodness. I thought you had cancer."
That's a great story. Yeah.
Things like that would happen, just to let you know that, that people are linked and there is communication beyond what we're used to, the earthly kind. And so that was kind of a given. And I guess when I was younger, I was,
So you were born with it. You were born with it. It just,
I guess we all were.
Manifest as you thought it would.
So years went on, and my sister Mary moved out to California and started taking classes from at the Louise Hay Institute. And
oh, wow.
She found a wonderful psychic out there. And that was the first I'd ever heard of anybody doing that. And so she would come home to visit, or we'd get on calls and all say, "Well, what did Gloria was her name? What did Gloria say this time?" And it was just fascinating. And yet still at the time, it was something you kept under wraps. You didn't talk outside the family about it.
Exactly.
And eventually I wanted my own Gloria. And so I found somebody, there was this kind of psychic shop in my neighborhood, and they had people giving readings. And I found this person who became what I called the family psychic for decades. Just about everybody but my dad had gone to see Diane, who was probably one of the best psychic mediums I've ever met. She was just wonderful. And I just learned so much over the years from her, not only about whatever my issues were, but just kind of how things worked. I remember once she said, I was asking about my brother, who he kind of, understands in this kind of stuff, isn't completely closed off, but he's just much more he was a little more type A. And she said, "Well, he's from a different planet. That's why." And I
love it.
And I thought at that time, I knew nothing about ETs or the different types of galactic friends we have out there. And so my other sister and I said, "He's from another planet." We thought, wow, that's really cool. And we had no idea that so are we, just different than him. So anyhow, she was ahead of her time in many ways. And anyhow, she passed on. But before she passed on,
Wait, can I ask
all
a
about-
quick question?
Sure, sure.
What year was this that she was talking about aliens? Because I'm just fascinated that long ago somebody would pop out
It
with
was
that.
probably late 70s, early 80s.
Isn't that amazing?
And that's
Yeah.
why I
Wow.
believed that it was. I never disbelieved in aliens. I always thought they
No,
were
I
there.
didn't either, but you didn't talk about it.
No, true.
And that's so true. That, from the time that I kind of got into this way back when, that just wasn't talked about. And there was no knowledge base to tap into or anything. So that kind of blew my sisters and I away that she would even reference that. But that from then to now, that I think is one of the major differences, that there's so much more understanding about things outside of just humans and our souls on the other side. But anyhow, I found after dying. Oh, one of the things that happened was when my younger sister passed, nobody else kind of knew about it, just the immediate family. And my mom and other sister came to this house, and we were getting ready to go plan things and visit places to plan her funeral. And Diane called and said, "Well, Mary's here and she wants to talk to you." My sister Mary, who had just passed. Yeah.
Wow.
So we passed the phone around, and she had a beautiful message for each of us. And that was kind of cool. And at the same time, my sister Mary's fiance at the time, another psychic named Carol Lowell, who is an equally good psychic, called him. And she just knew Mary in passing and said, "Mary's here. She wants to talk to you." And so he was able to have some closure on that too. So after Diane passed a couple of years after that, but I made it a point to get in touch with Carol, because she had kind of the family connection. You just have to have the family psychic, and she's been wonderful too. And it was after my sister's passing in 2012 that I started taking classes from Echo Bodine, who you may have heard of. She's written like 15 books and has been into this for ages and ages. And both she and Diane were students of the same teacher. So there was a connection there. But anyhow, I was taking classes from her, but at the time, I was in one that just wasn't really working. I was taking classes from both Carol and Echo. But then I just found this online community and saw that there was a class coming up. And I thought, now's the time. And that was the series of classes that Jean mentioned. And that was the summer of 2021, I think. And things have just really, really taken off since then.
Exploded.
Yeah. And compared to back in the day where it's like, don't breathe a word of this unless you really know who you're talking to. It's just wonderful that there are so many people who are here, and there's resources for learning all aspects of this whole world that we'll be talking about in the weeks to come.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fun.
It's
But that said, I would like to introduce the pure visionary psychic, Terry Lee, who is an amazing psychic medium. And if you don't already subscribe to her channel, I highly recommend it. Especially, you're not only just a great psychic medium, but you're a fabulous interviewer and have some of the best interview shows around. What is it? Walking into Worlds and Soul Sessions are just tops on my list. And I'm usually lurking rather than in the chat when I've been listening to those, but just know that I've listened to them and I love them.
Whatever way you do it, it's great.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask someone else to.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? There we go. Good.
It's all over it.
I'm learning.
Okay.
I'm learning, you guys.
Good.
Thank you, Jane, for help.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. And I'm very honored to be here with you ladies. You know, I always draw a card every time before I do a show of any kind, and also readings. And I drew the community card. And I was like, that's so right on, because this is a blessed community and something very special. For a long time, I called it the spiritual phenomenon, and I still do. It is really a spiritual phenomenon that we all pretty much during the same phase and periods of time, we're developing and learning through our lives, and had this knowledge. And when it came out, it came out. And we were all here to, love and support each other and grow as a community. And that goes to everyone in the chat out there. You guys are so very important.
Absolutely.
And my guides told me, we were having a little chat one day, but they told me that every soul has a unique contribution to the cosmic consciousness. Blew my mind, just the reality of that when it hit me. And I went, wow, that's so true. And that's the energy we feel from you out there in the chat. You have that contribution. You're raising the level of consciousness whenever we do these readings or have talks about each other. And I could go on, but I better tell about who I am, I guess.
Please.
I had a lot to learn, I think, when I landed on planet Earth. And I came into a family. My mother was very solid Christian, good hardcore believer to the day she passed at 102.
Wow.
And I was blessed to have that knowledge that she gave me about the Creator and his love and forgiveness. And my father struggled with alcoholism. And so we grew up with a life that was just, you couldn't count on anything. You were always having to readjust and be ready for what was going to happen each and every day, because you never knew, what my father was going to show up, what mood he was going to be in. But my mother was always there to, she loved us and cared for us, and bless her heart. A lot of women came to the planet a time during, she was born in 1920. So we have so much more knowledge about dysfunctionality and situations like that. We've been given that in our generation, and bless her heart, she did the best she could. But her main message was love. So I heard someone say the other day that oftentimes people are highly empathetic because they are from a dysfunctional family or had a childhood that had unpredictable circumstances. And they said that you have to learn as a child to read people, to know, to sense what's coming down the pike, right? And I went, wow. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's it. So I've always been very highly empathetic and had just a way of really kind of feeling what other people were feeling. And of course, a love for the Creator. And as I grew, I had a hunger. I had a hunger for science fiction. I had a hunger for anything that had to do with psychics and mediums. And, I'd go to the library in the back corner where all the the crazy books were. And I gobble it up. I've always been a voracious reader and learner. I just want all the knowledge I can get. And as I began to grow over time, I had to go through some things. I had to learn some things. And I married a pathological liar, a highly troubled man, and God bless him. But I had 3 beautiful, beautiful children and survived all of that. And as I survived it, I learned about, what it was that was causing me to experience these things. And I began to gain confidence in myself and know my worth. That was the huge thing that experience taught me. And then in the course of becoming a single mom with 3 kids, I was able to work. I worked for Boeing. I learned computer programming. It was like blessings came my way, and I was able to really satisfy that hunger and curiosity I had. I've always been fascinated, Edgar Cayce and other psychic mediums. And as I began to hunger for this knowledge, I would read all kinds of books and seek out all kinds of information about all of that. Just knowing that it was a hunger, not really realizing that it was going to happen to me someday. I've always had the ability I have clairaudience, and I didn't really realize what it was. When my father passed away, I would take long drives on the country road and I would talk to him out loud. And it just happened. It seemed natural to me. And there was at one point, we came we came to a beautiful love and agreement with each other during that period of time. And through that course of time, I started to realize, hey, I can hear him. I understood that, oh, okay, I actually am communicating with him. And it was a beautiful thing. I had experience doing computer programming, and then I jumped over to photography and had that experience. And then during the course of time, I got the privilege of being a singer in a rock and roll band. And
Woo, cool.
actually how I met my husband, my beautiful husband today. His name is David, and he's an amazing drummer. And we had lots of fun doing that. And I always thought, well, this is what I want to do. This is where it's going, right? It just kind of come close, and then it just would drift away, or something would happen. And, I'm raising children. So, that's the course, the thing that took my focus for a great number of years. Then I started to get into Wayne Dyer and Esther Hicks and all those wonderful things that sort of changed my mind and made me realize I actually have control over my life. This is great. And started to practice those things. And it gave me such joy and peace. And it was wonderful to be able to help other people kind of start to understand it. Then my son passed away. Actually, my younger sister passed away as well. So I've got lots of help over there on the other side. But when my son passed away, I really did reach out to some psychics and get some readings and just really start to feel and hear and know that he was there with me. And it was very, very strong, the strongest I'd ever experienced. In the past, I had actually at one time seen a ghost. And you know how you do? You see an apparition and you're like, well, I might not. I told my husband, but that was the only person who knew. And you just kind of set things aside. And then all of a sudden, everything began to gel. Everything began to gel. So I began to really absorb this information. And I have to thank, dare I say, be thankful for the political situation in this country that caused me to stop watching the news and tune into YouTube, right? Yay, ladies.
Yep, that's where
what
we found Gaia on YouTube.
Yeah. And that brought me to this wonderful experience with this community. Oh, God bless you all. And I was headed in that direction, but not quite there yet, thinking that I could do it. And I actually went to a wellness festival and had a reading by my favorite astrologer, David Pond. I highly recommend him. David Pond, astrologer. He's amazing. He's a very gifted, and very spiritual man. So as he's doing this reading for me, he goes, you actually have the ability, you have a high level of psychic ability in your chart. And I was like, no, really? And he's like, yes, you do. You actually do. And I'm like, wow, okay, thanks. And I came out of that kind of scratching my head going, well, maybe that's where I've been headed all this time. I don't know. And it was right after that, I saw the classes by Medium Kim and
Synchronicities.
isn't that, it was just they
guiding us.
laid it out for me, and Susan Lynn. And I was headed to the mountains to go on a vacation. And after that meeting with David Pond, I just kept feeling this. It was like, the guides were just nudging me. I call it a nudge, but there's no other way to explain it. You just hear it inside your soul and you're like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. So while I was on vacation, I was like, okay, I got to do this. And I had to get to cell service, and I got to cell service and signed up. And then of course, afterwards, I'm like, what have I done? I don't know what this is going to be like, but could not have found more, Medium Kim and Susan Lynn have such a gift of acceptance and love. They wrap you around that, and you feel that. And the same thing with my fellow classmates. It's just, it was a wonderful, wonderful feeling to be accepted. And like you said, we all have our different talents and ways of accessing information. And isn't that a beautiful thing? Not to be restricted, because, the Creator doesn't restrict us. We're all created to be our unique and special, glorious, brilliant selves. And
right.
that's the journey we're on, and I'm just so excited about it. And now that I'm doing these soul sessions, I'm really fascinated with that right now, and having the great opportunity to interview these very talented people. And I'm enjoying life and so grateful for this journey. So grateful for eternity. So that being said, we have another classmate that we can introduce, and I have to say, Terry Suzuki of Kigaru Spiritual Journeys is one of the most amazing readers. She has a true gift that opens up the universe to all kinds of interesting creatures and adventures, and the way her guides or way spirit works through her, just it tickles your imagination and your fantasies, and you know that you get that validation, but it's through such a wonderful, wonderful method. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce Terry Suzuki of Kigaru Spiritual Journeys.
Oh, thank you, Terry.
Of course.
Boy,
Yes.
what a
Yes, thanks, Terry. That was amazing.
what a hard act to follow. Yeah, thank you, Terry Lee. Thank you, Priscilla and Heather, for thinking of all this and inviting us on.
It had nothing to do with us. It was spirit.
I know,
It had
right?
nothing to do with us. I
Yeah,
just did what they said to do.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the nudge, though.
I'll take that.
So I also, as a child, experienced a lot of these things. I was born into a Catholic family. I want to say half Catholic. My dad converted to marry my mother, but my mother was quite Catholic, and it was interesting because I think I was born with pre-birth memories. And so when my mother would try to, like, don't do that, you're going to hell, or don't do it, God doesn't like, and I'm like, that's not the God I know. Sorry. And so I think I was a terrible child to raise. We're a very good Catholic family. There are 5 brothers and sisters, all of us 18 months apart. And we were like a pack, and we often did things together. One of the first memories that really happened to me is when I would go to sleep at night, I'd hang out with angels. They would like light up the room, and it was a little hard to sleep sometimes, but they were there talking, hanging out. And I didn't tell anybody about it because I thought I was normal, just like Heather. I'm perfectly normal. Everybody must do this. And so we need not talk about it. It went on. I also saw ghosts as a child all the time.
That was the best.
One of them just toppled over something.
Well, maybe that was a ghost.
No, that was the dog. That was the dog.
The dog.
Where the heck I hurt you?
Everybody should know that I'm always like 2 seconds away from the very same thing happening to me, because I have a corgi who's as loyal as can be, and she's always right below me right now, laying on the cords, chewing something. I am 1 chew away from losing contact with you all.
Well,
So, when people who I love died, they would often come and talk to me later, either in dreams or in kind of semi-dreams, and let me know where they were. And you can go on my channel and listen to some of those encounters. I again did not think this was unusual for some reason. I didn't really tell anybody about it. I think at one point I told my mom about it, because my mom was very careful all my life. She wouldn't let me go to any funerals. I couldn't. She would take the other children to funerals, but I couldn't go. And I appreciated that, because I don't. it's one thing to talk to them when they're passed. It's a whole different thing to talk to them when they're passed and their dead bodies there. I am
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about that one.
not into reanimation or anything like that. That probably
Yeah, that
would
would be
scare me
creepy.
way too much. And so things went on. And, you know, the thing was, is even though we didn't really talk about this in our household, you know, Catholicism, it has a lot of mysticism in it.
It
So
does.
somehow this was fine in our family. Well, I went to a really weird Catholic church that also it shared space with a Jewish synagogue. So sometimes I went to Jewish services, sometimes Catholic services, and
Interesting.
I don't know. It
Very
didn't. It seemed just fine to me, or it was interesting, really interesting.
Yeah.
Even though my mom was very hard ass Catholic, she somehow put up with me and didn't really, you know, I could tell her a little bit and she would be kind of all right with it. And that was interesting. But then I went on to marry a man who was a holy roller.
I just can't see you with a holy roller.
Evangelical, tongue talking Christian. And it was like a whole new world. And so I really couldn't talk about what was happening to me at all. That was really not okay. That would definitely be from the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom then eventually joined such a movement too, and suddenly everything was from the devil. So it's like, oh my God. And yet these things kept happening. And as I went through life, that, you know, I just didn't talk about it anymore and just experienced it, but didn't really talk about it. It didn't bother me. It's funny. So then eventually I did get divorced. And during the divorce, my spirit guides talked to me. And not once did I say, oh, that's from the devil. I just, the voices were so calming that I just accepted it for what it was, you know? And I realized that it was somehow sacred and holy and just went with it. And so from then on, I became a single mom of 3 kids and just had to hard scrabble my way through life, put myself through college and university, and went on then to work in nonprofits because I have always had this mission in life to help people. That's always been my very bedrock. I want to help people. And so I couldn't imagine this life. So I went for nonprofits to help people. And it was very interesting because now I realize, looking back, I was using my psychic abilities all the time.
All the time.
All the time in everything I did. So like I taught computer classes to immigrants and refugees. And somehow I knew how each person could learn. I knew how they could receive the lesson. I knew how to use things in their lives to talk about it, to help it make sense.
Right.
And I was very, very successful at that. So I've only actually worked for 3 nonprofits, and the next one, then I went into grant writing because at the end of the first nonprofit, I was given a lot of grants because my programs were successful. If we set a goal to do something, we definitely did it. And so I went on to grant writing and was actually very successful in that too. And then the next one was more grant writing. And in grant writing, if you're like 20, 25, maybe 30% of wins, you're golden. But with my psychic abilities, I was 48%, nearly 50%.
Wow.
So I could identify grants and like, oh yeah, we can get money from this. And even though I don't think my boss would ever have believed anything like that, she somehow knew I had something going on because she would come to me, Terry, what do you think? Do you think we're going to get this one? You know, like in a low voice, like we can't talk out loud about it.
That's
And
funny.
so this was really interesting. But I got set up by Spirit. It was all a big setup at the end. Spirit knew COVID was coming, but I didn't. And Spirit suddenly, as COVID happened and we had to go home, I still had to work because I can write grants on my computer at home and not have to see anybody. And except for, even though I'm one of those nose to the grindstone person, going to work really hard, I had such a hard time working because all I wanted to do was watch YouTube. All I wanted to do was watch near-death, NDEs, near-death experiences, or spiritual things. And I first encountered Linda G, and I really liked her a lot. And then I went on to Susan Lynn, and really fascinating, loved them. And then here's where the setup came in. So now I'm home, and we've been there for a while, and it's August of 2020. And my boss, this is completely Spirit at work. My boss came to me and said, Terry, we need somebody to teach virtual summer horse camp. Because we used to have horse camp in person. I worked for a therapy on horseback nonprofit, and nobody could come there, especially because our clients, were very health-wise very challenged. So you don't want to even potentially introduce them to COVID. And so would you do this on Zoom? We'll give you some lessons, and would you do it? And it would take a whole month. I would do 4 classes, twice a day. And they made a lot of promises, like they'd give me all these lessons, but they didn't quite deliver as much as they said. But one of the things I had to do is that our Wi-Fi wasn't very good. And I had to, if you're going to have horse camp, you got to have some horses, right? So I want to be able to go out. And so basically I had to figure out all of the tech world that I would need to do Zoom, and to do Zoom away from the office, out in the barn or out in the paddocks or out in the stalls. And I had to figure it out by myself. And so I did. And I held virtual horse summer camp for disabled people ages 4 through, I think, 25.
Wow.
Right.
And it was amazing. And I felt like I was channeling my inner Grandma Carol, my horse grandma, my country grandma. And she was all about the lessons, the morality, the love. She was really about love. That's who she was about love, extending love to people, giving people the benefit of the doubt. And I just saw such grace in action teaching these kids and adults. And I felt like, boy, I'm onto something here. I'm onto something. Something, this means something, and I'm supposed to do something like this, but I didn't know what. So I made a list of all the things I could do. And then I finally got brave enough and had Susan Lynn read me. And, you're not really supposed to talk a lot during the reading, but I was talking too much. Probably too much, but she was doing a checklist as she was reading me with her guides. You know how she is with her guides, but she was in a checklist, and she was like, empathetic, check. Intuitive, check. Psychic, check. Medium, check. And she's like, oh man, you got it all. You got it all. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then she taught me how to speak to my spirit guides. And right away, right after I got off the Zoom with her, I talked to my spirit guides, and the first thing they said is write down all your dreams, all your spiritual dreams. Every time we introduce you to a ghost or you talk to another spirit, write it all down now. So I did.
All righty.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, let's do that. So that became the basis of my channel. And of course, you know that right after I started to do that, I also signed up for Susan Lynn and Medium Kim's classes and met all these lovely ladies.
Met all the lovely women.
Yeah.
And there's others. I know there's others in those classes too that are in the
others. A lot of them in our chat right now. I'm pointing our chat over there.
awesome.
So like Heather said, I didn't know you could use these things. I didn't know. So through the classes, I realized, hey, you can control, you can use these gifts, you can control these gifts, and you can develop them. And so basically, I thought I'd kind of give a list. So I'm a psychic medium, like the other ladies, with the same kind of basic things that I can read on. But I'd have to say that my specialty is journeys.
Journeys.
Yeah.
We love journeying with you.
Yes. Yes.
Anybody that's done it is fascinated by it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's because I may have gotten an extra dose of imagination. I have a way out imagination, always have as a kid. So when you journey with me, lots of things can happen. So the first thing that you should know is my journeys tend to go beyond time and space. So who knows where we're going to be, what part of the universe we might be in, what we might be seeing, what time we might be in even. What I've experienced out there with people is sometimes the angels will do healings or sometimes energetic upgrades. They often give me or the person with me on the journey a spiritual gift, a little gift that often you can actually, because I have you hold out your hands, you actually often can feel the gift enter your hands. And the other thing that I often encounter out there is we get messages from councils. So some of the journeys just fun. They're just like healing and doing things and igniting your imagination, but some of it's really serious. And so often we get messages from councils of angels or ETs, sometimes loved ones perform. I've did a reading where they just wanted to know about their ancestors, and it was just their ancestors that came and gave them a message. But also ascended masters sometimes show up. And I learned how to do this through meditation. Generally, if I meditate, it often then can end up in a journey. So I learned alone first. But then I learned how to do it with a friend, how to bring somebody along with me. And that friend is SunPsychic Jean. She she would go with me on journeys. In fact, we still do to this day. We book out at least one day a month to just together go on a journey and get new messages. It's kind of like taking a little vacation where you get refreshed. And recently, I did it for a group. So I did a small group of 4. That's the very first time I've ever done it.
How fun.
I hadn't intended to do it. I meet with some ladies around the globe for meditation every Sunday morning. And there were not so many people could show up because of the holidays. And I was sitting there tuning in, doing whatever I do to get there. And suddenly my guides were like, ask them if they want to go on a journey. And I'm like, well, maybe they don't want to do that. I mean, that's not what we usually do. I'm kind of arguing with them. And
arguing with spirit.
Like giving a shove, like, Terry, ask them. And so finally I did, and we all went on a journey, and it was a lot of fun. And I until that point, I didn't know more than one person could go with me.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'd have to say also the other thing is I'm a big dreamer. I have very lucid dreams. The dreams are amazing. I'm often talking to people. I'm not really afraid. I feel like I did all the shadow work with the evangelicals. Okay. So evangelicals already scared the hell out of me. Okay. So I'm done with that part. I'm not afraid when I'm out there.
Right.
Yeah. And, it is a very interesting thing. I think there's still more things to come. I'm always interested in trying something new. And yeah, it's just really a really interesting life now. I can't believe that this is my, I guess, third career. And this is what I was meant to do the whole time. Well, thank you so much for listening to me. And I get the pleasure of introducing Priscilla, because Priscilla is very, very interesting. And I haven't told you yet, Priscilla, but on that journey, that last journey I took with 3 other ladies, I think your oversoul was there.
Oh, I got chills.
Yeah. And he was really interesting.
I'm reading Jane Roberts' Oversoul 7 right now.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Well, you were very pink still over there. So I will get the other lady's permission to see if I can share the recording of it with you, because it was interesting. And because I think it was your oversoul. And she had some good information for us about vibration, that we're all in like an opera inside.
Yes.
It was amazing. So anyway, so Priscilla, you're next.
Thank you.
Well done,
ladies,
well
I
done.
did not have a lot of psychic experiences as a child, and my family were actually open to it. There were 5 of us, 18 months apart, like happened to happen in the 50s, I guess. And my older sister, I was with her a lot. I was like her little mini me, and she took me everywhere. And she had a medium that she would go to, and we called her the crazy cat lady, because she had cats everywhere. There were cats everywhere. I mean, there were hundreds, I think, in this lady's house. But we would go visit her, and I don't remember anything fascinating about it. The only experience I remember as a child is when I would go to my sister's apartment. If she wasn't there, I would be very uncomfortable. And she actually had a malevolent ghost that was there that followed her to California when she moved out of that place and went to California. But I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that I didn't like being in that house by myself. It gave me the creeps. And that's really it. Like Terry, I always felt like I wanted to help others in my life. I didn't really know how. I became a nurse. And then, because of the empathetic nature and my resistance to authority figures, I got out of nursing because it wasn't about the patients so much. And it's even worse now, because it wasn't for profit when I was a nurse. So it was better in that way. But there were too many burned out people, too many burned out nurses that were not about patients any longer. And so I actually went into surgery and worked in surgery. And then I ended up leaving that medical and going into medical device manufacturing, into quality assurance, because I felt like I was helping make sure that the products that got to market were good for people. And that's what I did for 25 years with startup companies, implementing quality systems as I raised my daughter as a single parent, because I married a narcissist. And I was really glad to get out of that marriage. And I didn't marry again until my job took me to England in 1995. And I met my husband there, my husband, David, that was my second husband. And as we lived in England in 2000 until 2003, and we moved back to the States. And the reason we moved back, unbeknownst to me, he would get in his car and he would see the map of Texas on the windshield, just a map of Texas. Now, I didn't know he had any psychic abilities. He never claimed to have any psychic abilities, but he was psychic AF. I mean, off the charts, off the charts. He was a competition angler in England and Europe and won many, many tournaments. And he said he would go to a tournament and know he was going to win. He didn't know why. Didn't matter where they put him. He just knew he was going to win that day. And he said that happened quite frequently, but nothing big. Well, I had American miniatures that I was raising in England and breeding and showing American miniatures there. But I was working between New Jersey and England. I would fly over to the U.S. 2 or 3 weeks out of the month for a couple of years. And one time he came to visit. He'd never been to New York City, so he came to visit. And we said we were having a great time in New York City. And I got a call from the farmer that was taking care of my horses telling me I needed to get home. My mare was getting ready to foal. And I was like, no, I don't think so. She's got a couple of weeks. I think we'll be okay coming home in because we were supposed to leave in like 3 days, 2 or 3 days. And David turned to me and he went, nope, we need to go now. I'm like, are you nuts? It's going to cost us a bloody fortune to change our tickets. And, we'd have to fly to London, then up to Manchester. It was just kind of a nightmare logistically. I just received a halter for my mare, for my little sister. She'd shipped it to my office in New Jersey it was called a foaling halter. And what it did was it would go alarm in the house when the mare laid down in the foaling position. We weren't home 15 minutes and that alarm went off. I had barely put the halter on the mare and walked back up to the house after we'd gotten there. And I had a camera with red lights in the barn so I could see what was going on in the barn. And sure enough, 15 minutes later, that alarm went off. She was foaling. It was a breech birth. If I hadn't been there to call the vet, she would have died, her and the foal. The foal did die, but the mare didn't. I was like, how did you know, honey? I don't know. But he never told me about the map to Texas. And that was like a year or two later. So we moved back to Texas to be, my daughter just had my first granddaughter. And I supported David in all of his learning to be a psychic medium. And he talked to different entities, but he didn't really know where they came from or names or anything like that. And he really didn't want that gift. He was an engineer, an astrophysicist, had no desire whatsoever to be a psychic medium. Well, his talents grew and I just supported him because I was fascinated. We had so many interesting experiences together, but nothing particularly for me other than he would get messages from people when I decided to go do my training. I had been studying Zachariah Ascension and Louise Hay and all of those back in the early 2000s. There had been a girl that had a shop, and we would all go down there. This little tiny village I lived in North Texas, and there was a whole group of women that were absolutely interested in what was going on. Well, my friend had to close her shop. My husband had a heart attack. I closed his helicopter business down, and we created a goddess center for all of us we just moved over from the shop into that. And we brought in, a girl walked in and said, I just finished training Yoga Fit, and I need a place to get my hours in. Are you interested in yoga? Oh, yeah, please. For free. Well, I met all kinds of people with all kinds of different modalities, but I had just finished my training for healing because I had gotten the message one day. I was laying on a massage table and I heard in my head, go lay your hands on your sister. You need to put your hands on your sister's stomach. I'm like, what? Who's this coming from? So I went to my sister and I told who lived just a half a mile from me. And I said, I am supposed to lay my hands on you and I have no idea why. And I did. And she could feel the energy. Well, it wasn't long after that. She picked up a book by Eric Pearl on the reconnection. And we drove to Fort Worth one day. It was about 30 minutes. And we read the book. I read it out loud to her while she was driving and we did our errands. And we were both fascinated. We were running a horse registry at the time, Gypsy Cobs from England. So every afternoon for lunchtime, we would go practice the reconnect. He had exercises in the back. And we both were like, I can feel this. Oh my God, what is this? And trying all the exercises. Well, she had a massage table in the shop where we were. So we started working on each other. Well, I went home one night to David and I said, I really think I need to take this reconnective healing. And he was like, okay, whatever you want to do. It's you and your woo-woo stuff. It's okay, whatever you want to do. But before I took the class, he'd wake me up in the middle of the night. He said, I am going to have to touch you in the middle of the night. I don't know why, but I need to touch you. And what it was, there were 3 different entities that came to him. And I was going to pick whichever one resonated the most, I guess. So one was a Jewish rabbi from like the 5th century or something, I don't know, from way back. Another one was an American Indian, an Apache named Red Eagle. And the third one was a Flathead Indian from Montana, which we researched and found out he actually existed. But at the time, there were the 3 of them. And I ended up, he would touch me like this. I didn't feel anything until Red Eagle, the Apache. And I almost jumped out of the bed. It scared me so bad. So needless to say, Red Eagle is the one, and he's still with me. And he's been with me since that day. And even a psychic lady at the healing, when I went to take the training, saw him with me. And I was like, well, I can't see him, but cool. I'm glad he's here. Life went on. In 2015, David died. Followed immediately by my older sister and my mother right after that. So Heather and I decided to move to Key West anyway, without him. And we got down here, and within a week, he was trying to contact me. First, it was through the smoke alarm. And my family was here. My daughter and my grandkids were here. And my daughter says, do you think that's Poppy? And I said, well, I don't know. Let's find out. We can ask it yes or no questions. So I was like, okay, yes, if it's, 1 beep if it's yes, 2 beep if it's no. And sure enough, we started having a conversation with the smoke alarm. So that was 2016. And I struggled with communicating with him. I knew I was getting messages from him. But spirits guided me all my life. There is no doubt in my mind. Everything is falling into place just amazingly. When you look back, it's like, oh my God, how did that even happen? So COVID hit. We all went internal. We started watching Gaia. Interviews with extra dimensionals. And it was psychic mediums, people that were channeling, because I started channeling him as well as some other beings. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about it. I'd been to the Crazy Cat Lady as a medium, and that was pretty much it. I didn't know anything about anything. So we started watching that, and that really helped. I learned all the basics through Gaia, and then we found YouTube and you guys. And that was even more fascinating because the community was just so beautiful and everybody was loving and kind to each other. And, when you've been on Facebook people are insane the way they act. And I was like, these people aren't like that. And then they tell me, you need to start a YouTube channel. I'm like, no, not me. Mm-mm. People are nasty and mean out there. I don't want to do that. That February we got our YouTube channel. So that's how I got started. But it's slowly but surely.
Other than healing.
Yes, other
Which we
than
do.
healing. And Heather and I have been healing together for the last 10 years. We've been working together as healers. We came up with our own version, evolution therapy, because it kept evolving with the two of our energies. And that's how we learned how to manipulate energy and how that worked. So I guess that's my story. And here you guys are. Part of my story is I'm part of your story now. And it's just amazing how wonderful this whole community is. And I thank you so much for being here today and starting this project that they want us to start. It's you ladies are the perfect group to start off with. And I
Absolutely.
hope we'll have more and more guests as time goes by. And I guess I'll let you guys take it from there.
Do you want to tell them one more time for all the new people coming in, sort of what it's going to be like? It's once a month, and it's a wisdom circle panel of women or just wise ones, I would guess, right? Doesn't have to be
We have
women.
wise women, young or old, and wise men. Who knows? We may have wise men around. I have no idea.
There
Well,
are just different experiences from different people, including those who are in the chat. And
we're going to pick a subject every month, and
And
it's the
one-
first Monday of the month. And each one of us has two subjects. So we'll start off next month is Wisdom Seeker Joan, who's going to show us how to get out of our own way. We'll discuss that and our experiences with that. And each month it'll be a different person leading the circle. And we want information from the chat room. We want your all's participation because it's fascinating to listen to your stories as well. And I'm hoping that we can actually put a link in the chat room for the people that would like to come on and discuss whichever subject we're talking about. So that's the reason for the group.
yeah.
That's
and
beautiful.
again, it is
Thank you.
entertainment and spiritual purposes only.
Yes, for entertainment and spiritual purposes only. Always, as all of us do. So I want to thank everybody in the chat room. We've made it an hour and 15 minutes, our first show without a subject. I think we've done well. Is there anybody in the chat room that had questions or anything that we want to go back to? Because while I was talking, I didn't see anything.
Or anything that any of you would want
Please.
to add?
I think it was just Light 777 wanted to know where we took the classes, and
there's so many.
we may have answered it since then, but just in case, it was Medium Kim Copeland, and she still does do some classes, and Susan Lynn, I believe she does some on her Patreon. Is that correct?
Yeah, I
She
think
does. Mhm. And I believe she is just about to start a new class that's available not only on Patreon, and it's a mediumship class. So go to Susan Lynn's channel and check that out. The information will be there.
And I just heard Kevin's Loving Vibrations. He's got a class coming up too. I don't know anything about his classes, but I just heard that he has a class coming up, and he's a sweet, kind young man.
Yes, very
And
excellent.
like,
Mhm.
There
very
are a lot of
talented.
people with different kinds of classes. It's just a matter of looking it up and seeing who's doing what and what your interests are. I mean, there are
And-
tarot classes, there are oracle card classes, there are
Well,
all sorts of things out.
the Tarot Love community has probably a list of all the classes, I would
Wow.
imagine.
Yeah, and-
That's cool that she's taken a crystal healing class.
Pure Energy Healing Academy. Interesting.
I have to mention that, you know, if you don't have a lot of money for classes right now, I learned a great deal from Deborah Katz, Katz. I actually heard her name in a dream. As God is my witness, that's how I found her.
Really?
I
Wow.
did. And she has a beautiful book called You Are Psychic. And that gave me a lot of really fascinating technique and information on psychic mediumship. So, very inexpensive book. I believe you can get it on Amazon.
I would imagine.
Mhm.
You can get pretty much anything on
Anything,
Amazon.
I know.
Yeah. Well, if that's good, I want to thank everybody for being here for our
And
first
sharing.
show and sharing all the information, because there's a lot of things I didn't know about you ladies either.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. So till next month, let's say goodbye. Thank you, chat room, for being here. You know how much we love you. Please go out and shine your light like
And
these
share.
beautiful ladies do. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll
Thank
see
you.
you next month.
Thank you,
Okay?
guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
I know.